the kids to want to play Smash. Like, how do you feel about Amiibo? I really like this thread, like the Amiibo's the next Ebola. I think.
Yeah, the next Ebola.
Yeah, this all started in the CT. I mean, I'm sure you remember we were all talking about it in the CT.
Yeah.
I was talking about my dislike of the Amiibos, and then everybody started.
And then Matt just basically said, "Well, I'm going to create a thread about it."
Yeah, he said I'm gonna create a thread about it, and then this is the thread he created. It was great, and everybody was kind of chiming in about the Amiibos. Like, what do you think about the Amiibos?
So, for me anyway, Amiibo is, I think it's a great idea, from the standpoint of, typically, and I mentioned this in the Amiibo thread, but for, anyone, basically, with Amiibo, what it's doing right now is it seems to be providing you, some games are providing you some, like, extra little DLC in terms of, let's say, costumes or weapons and that kind of stuff.
Right.
The sort of things that other developers or publishers probably would have you spend 99 cents or $1 here and there, or $2 or whatever here and there for all that. But
like as a downloadable content rather than like a...
It's downloadable content, but it would be then for regular digital DLC, it'll be tied to that game. It will not be able to transfer to other games. And this is where Amiibo comes in.
Right.
You can use Amiibo for different, well, I know you can't, I think you can't save data, I think it is, you can on different games, but you can definitely use the Amiibo on different games. And so I kept thinking about that, if you could use, let's just take Samus, if you take Samus, the Samus Amiibo, and let's say you put it on Smash Brothers, but then let's say the new Metroid comes out, you could probably scan with that, or if there's maybe
right, and it could be anything.
Related to Samus, you can continue to use the Amiibo for future games.
And it could be anything in any game, right? It could be like any downloadable content, like related to the character or related. You know what I mean? I mean, shit. They have fucking I'm playing Bayonetta right now. I'll get to that later, or how I even have it. But I'm playing Bayonetta now, and they have all these costumes in it. I mean, it's not DLC, but that's exactly what it is. It's just free DLC. You got the Peach costume, but one of them is the Metroid costume. But I can see that being a feature in these other games, like not being something that's unlocked like right away, but something that you might use this Amiibo thing for. Just like a little extra perk. To have a little Samus action in a game that you might not normally be able to get that action. But it's published by Nintendo. Like, imagine Devil's Third, being able to use the Amiibo to unlock, like, a Samus costume and how popular that might be. And then you could see, like, the possibilities of what Shoulder is trying to say in terms of, like, how these Amiibos, like, stretch beyond being valuable for just a single game. Like, it's basically like buying something that could be potentially downloadable content from many games, is what you're trying to say.
Right. And that's one area that obviously there was a post I saw on another site that basically said that the amount of data that it holds not very much, which is probably why it's only save data or whatever is only tied to one game. But anyway, with a traditional DLC, you buy it digitally as downloadable content. That's what it's called.
Right.
And it's basically a case of you don't physically own it. It's similar to if you buy a digital game, you don't physically have it. It's just a bunch of ones and O's. That's all it is. And
right. Well, on your hard drive, it's just a bunch of information.
Right. Exactly. It's on your hard drive. Now, I know a lot of people still like physical media. Whether it's they buy video games or movies and TV shows, books, things like that. They want to have that physical presence, something to hold when they actually use it.
Right.
And with Amiibo, you could almost think of it as physical DLCs, which you're holding. Now, granted, the limits of what this DLC could be, we don't know. Maybe down the way they'll say, hey, if you have Amiibo already, you don't have to pay $2-3 to download this extra map or something like that for a Mario Kart 8 DLC or something like that. You can just scan your Amiibo and there you go.
Right, because you've already invested in having this Amiibo. We're going to reward you for having it. I mean, basically that's what it is. Because if you think about it, it's like most DLC is kind of a one-time deal. It's like you buy it, you pay the money, you buy the DLC. It's not like you buy some The only thing that I could equate this to is something like a season pass, in terms of buying content that isn't available yet. But you know what's coming with the season pass. You don't really know what's coming with the amiibo. These are going to be, perhaps people are going to be pleasantly surprised in terms of like what they may or may not get, in terms of perks in other games. You know, as far as them buying the amiibo, they're probably buying the amiibo for particular games already. But in terms of like it being useful in other games other than that initial game, you know, that's going to be up in the air. I mean, as far as we know, that's only going to be revealed like as in terms of like when Nintendo wants to reveal it, which is probably going to be really close to when most of these games, if they get released, and if they have this kind of interaction with the amiibos that you already own, or you know, this is when they're going to announce it, like probably, you know, like a month or like a few weeks or at the Nintendo Direct or some shit like that, you know. So it's kind of like a guessing game though with the amiibos. Like people have been talking about like it being that extra value and stuff, but I don't think really anybody's kind of addressed the fact that we don't really know like if that is going to be the case. You might have to go buy another amiibo, another Samus amiibo that's a little bit different to get like that different DLC and something else like in the future. I'm not really sure exactly like how Nintendo plans to use these amiibos in that fashion.
I mean, one of the things I could say is that, you know, traditionally if you buy, let's say, a collector's edition of a game, that sometimes you'll get like a statue or a figurine or something like that.
Right.
Amiibo is kind of the same way, but unlike a traditional figurine where it's really just a trophy piece that you just kind of hang up, or not hang up, but you put on your shelf or something.
Correct.
Amiibo actually has an actual function. You can actually use it, you know, for your games.
Right, you can use it in your
right
game.
there, it does have extra features attached to it. Now, whether or not Amiibo will be...
But we've already been there, though, right?
Crisis.
Shoulder, like, as far as this has been done, as far as the Skylanders and the Infinity, I mean, Disney and Activision, they've been doing this for, like, the past 2 or 3 years in terms of this stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean...
Because you can use your old Skylanders, like, on the new Skylanders games, if I'm not mistaken, so that figure carries over that value that you've bought, as far as, like, if you bought the first Skylanders and then you bought, like, the next Skylanders that came out. I mean, this has been done before already, correct?
Right. And so it's, like, traditionally, you know, Nintendo doesn't exactly do things that are new. They just take ideas that, hey, someone probably implemented before and then tweaks it.
Well, come on. What's cooler than, I mean, come on. Which would you think is cooler? The fucking Skylander figure or the Disney Infinity? I mean, Disney has Marvel, though. I mean, so you're talking, like... But, I mean, these are kind of like little, what's the word I'm looking for? The chibi kind of versions of these Marvel characters. I don't know if you've seen them, but they're kind of like the Disney-friendly.
I've not, but...
You know, I've seen some of the figures, and I've seen some of the art for it, and it's very, like, kind of kid-friendly. It's not, like, all super cool, like, as far as if you read the comics and stuff, you might not necessarily be into this, because it's got the appeal of, like, say, if you enjoy the Lego Marvel games, like you might enjoy the Marvel part of this Infinity. But what I'm really trying to get at is that, like, this is what Nintendo does best, and I personally think that the Nintendo figures are much cooler in terms of, you know, to me it's just something that Nintendo doesn't do. I mean, you've seen Nintendo figures in the past, but Nintendo first-party licensing figures this way, in terms of them actually having gameplay value, it's very unique. Like, you don't really see this kind of stuff. And as far as I know, the amiibos are pretty high-quality stuff. Like, do you have an amiibo yet?
Yeah. I do not, no.
Right, but you plan on buying one. You seem very optimistic.
I was actually considering probably getting the Samus amiibo. Probably,
man, Donut already got his. I mean, everybody's talking about getting his. I really hate this idea because I didn't like the Skylanders, and I didn't like the Disney Infinity because I felt like it was just a scam to get parents kind of to buy these things for their kids, and I feel like this is like, but this is something different. This isn't the same. Like, they're not really trying to appeal to children just yet. Like, at first, the initial people who pay the price of admission are going to be people like you and people like Donut and like these hardcore Nintendo fans that like want to get their hands on these things. They're like interactive kind of statuettes. I mean, because if you go back, I mean, these things have been popular in Japan for a really long time, and anybody who's been hardcore into video games has probably been collecting figures or toys or something since they were very young. I'm personally not into this kind of stuff, and I made fun of it, but this is like a big business. This is like a huge industry, not just for children, but for adults. Like, who do you think that Nintendo is trying to target with these things initially? I think it's the hardcore fans. Eventually, I think they're going to try and target the kids, but right now, I think it's the fans.
Well, considering when you, I think it was one of their investors meetings I think they had recently, and they were talking about the demographic for Wii U owners, and the majority demographic is that, I think it's that 18 to 35 age group, which is the majority of us on TNE actually. So,
Right.
You know, some of us are, I think, older than 35. I think Matt's 35, or is he 36 now? I can't remember.
I'm not exactly sure how old Matt is.
I don't
That's
know.
sad.
But,
He's my homeboy.
I
He's
think-
gonna like
I-
not
I
like
think-
that I don't remember how old he is.
Yeah, I think with regards to what you know, for Nintendo, I think they understand that. They understand that where the general age group is, and they'll try to capitalize on that first, and then maybe include kids, you know, into it if they want. You know, parents want to, you know, get
I
their
think
kids
this-
Amiibo.
I think this is leading into the Skylanders business. I mean, I think that's where they're trying to tap
Oh,
into
yeah.
this market.
I think so,
and,
too.
and I think that they
Because-
think that this is kind of like the anchor that's going to save the Wii U from sinking, like going off the edge of the fucking, you know, the edge of the world kind of thing. Like, I really feel like they're trying to save the Wii U, and Amiibo is like the biggest part to me of that, because it brings the children back to Nintendo. Because up until now, it really hasn't been the kids playing Nintendo, it's been the hardcore fans. It's been like the people that grew up playing Nintendo buying the Wii U. Like, they're trying to make the Wii U appeal to a younger demographic again. I feel like they're trying to fall back on that old crutch, you know, that, you know, we can appeal to the kids, you know what I mean? And it does appeal to the kids because it appeals to their fucking parents, you know, and they feed this shit to their kids just like I feed it to my son, and other parents probably feed it to their kids, and they become indoctrinated with Nintendo before they even really understand what the fuck it is. And honestly, I feel like these are going to be the kids that Nintendo was targeting with Amiibo eventually. But right now, I feel like they're
Right.
totally going after people like Donut, who can't, you know, he just has to have everything Metroid, and, you know, like,
His avatar says it all.
yeah, Travis, I mean, Teach was telling me, you know, that having one of these Amiibo things got his old lady, his wife, excuse me, I don't mean that in a bad way, the old lady thing, I mean that as a term of endearment, I'm just saying, but his wife apparently started to play Smash because she was interested in the Amiibos. I thought this was very interesting. I thought this was like, this is what Nintendo is hoping to achieve with the Amiibos. It's like the same kind of widespread popularity that they got with the Wii in terms of like bringing in people who don't normally play games, like who aren't normally interested in Nintendo in general. Like bought a Wii because it had, you know, the
Yeah.
motion controls and the sports and all that stuff. But with the Wii, they haven't been able to bring that demographic in, and I think that they're trying to bring that demographic in now with the Amiibo. I feel like this is their new strategy to bring in the casual audience eventually. Like to bring in the kids that aren't really playing Wii U now, but find out about like their friend having Amiibo, or their friend's brother, like older teenage brother having Amiibo, or their dad having Amiibo because he liked Nintendo when he was a little kid and wanting to buy into this stuff. Like, I feel like Amiibo is going to sell Smash, like, more than it ever would if Amiibo wasn't there.
I think it has potential of doing that. You know, I mean, ultimately, you know, Nintendo, they're a business. They're a business. They're a corporation. They have shareholders. You know, they try to do make decisions that'll please